politics anymore, I guess. That's not leadership. And again, one of your other slides talked about how people want a strong leader. There's been no leadership on the coronavirus. There's been no leadership on the civil rights issues that are also part of that slide that you showed. People want leaders who will bring us together. And I think the vice president has a very, very strong plan to build back better, to make sure we get a handle on the coronavirus, to build our economy. Talk to voters in Michigan. The reason why I think Joe Biden's doing really well in Michigan and places like Michigan is it was Joe Biden and Barack Obama who saved the auto industry. And you look at what happened under Donald Trump's watch. Before the pandemic, we were in a manufacturing recession. He promised there'd never be a plant closure.
で一回ステーキ食べるからね。一回ステーキ食べるから。でも暗いのよ。家が暗いの。明るくする方法ない。暗い中であんまりステーキ食べたことない。あと30分で最初の投票所の最初の州が閉まるんだって。こんばんは。一回ステーキ食べます。僕が。Is that seasoned hand who can do that and bring us back and bring us together and bring our economy back for everyone.
Democratic National Committee Chairman Tom Perez. Mr. Chairman, thanks very much. Coming up, Georgia is the only state with 2 Senate seats on the ballot. Look at the races that could decide whether Republicans keep their majority in the chamber. Stay with us. You're streaming Red and Blue.
天才だな俺。ステーキを焼かせたらレアだけどうまっ。
These are hard, tiring, taxing jobs, even before coronavirus came.
This is my clerk's wife's so I have no idea what I'm walking into. I don't know if the customers are carriers.
I feel privileged to be out here with so many people out of work.
なんかペンシルベニアトランプが勝つんじゃねえかって分析をちらっと見たんだけどあれ何だったんだろう。
We have to be willing to change policy on a permanent basis to recognize and honor these workers.
Doesn't seem like it's worth the risk that you endure every day.
I have to do what I can to take care of myself and my family.
If you had the choice, would you stay home?
Maybe yeah.
日本は朝ですか？
Devastating flooding has reached catastrophic levels.
Rising sea levels are threatening America's coasts. You would have to take that house and put it on stilts 10 feet tall. If the street is filled with salt water, what difference does it make how high you make your house?
あ、ケーキさんだ。お疲れ様です。
The concentration of the highest rental rates is exactly where the elevation is highest.
ほら、顧問が来てました。そのさっき俺が言ってたウォルター・ウォレス・ジュニアが殺されたあたりに投票所に顧問が来ててすげえニアミスした。惜しかった。顧問会いたかった。俺ジョー・バイデンより顧問の方が会いたいわ。全然ジョー・バイデンより顧問の方が会いたいわ。顧問シカゴから来たんだね、わざわざ。この肉超うまい。なんだろう、アメリカの牛肉のうまさ。なんでだろう。和牛とは違うタイプのこのなん勢いがすごいタイプのさ、この分厚く切っても柔らかいというか、なんか柔らかくもないんだけど、なんかステーキが向いてますっていう感じの味だよね。
We are closely watching some key Senate races tonight that could decide the majority in the chamber. Republicans are defending nearly twice as many seats as Democrats. Both big Imam is on Capitol Hill with some of the down-ballot races that could be pivotal.
Control of the White House isn't the only thing at stake on this election day.
35 Senate seats are also up for grabs. Republicans occupy 23 of them. Senators at risk include party leaders such as South Carolina's Lindsey Graham. 6 years ago, Graham was re-elected with a 17-point margin. His race against Democrat Jamie Harrison is now seen as a toss-up. Susan Collins is seeking a fifth term as Maine's senior senator. Collins won her last race by 36 points, but today she's neck and neck with Democrat Sarah Gideon, Maine Speaker of the House. In Georgia, Senator David
どう思うみんな。どういう選挙になると思いますか。いろいろ情報あったらここに貼ってくださいね。
After that moment went viral, Purdue pulled out of their final debate. Special elections being held for Georgia's other seat, currently held by Republican Kelly Loeffler. Candidates face a runoff if no one gets more than 50% of the vote. 2 years ago, Arizona Republican Mark lost her Senate race but was later appointed to the late Senator John McCain's seat.
なんかスーパー行ったらステーキが美味しそうだな。
Astronaut Mark Kelly. Democrats seized control of the House back in 2018. Today, the House holds
700円ぐらい。まあいい値段するけど、でも外で食うこと考えたら全然いいですね。うまい。
For how we're going to go down a different path. We've come to a fork in the road when it comes to the coronavirus.
Speaker Pelosi says if Democrats control the House, Senate, and White House, they will move quickly to pass the coronavirus relief bill and take steps to strengthen the Affordable Care Act. Gofta Imam, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
We're taking a deeper dive into some of these close Senate races. That includes in North Carolina, where Senator Tom Tillis is facing Democratic challenger Cal Cunningham. Up until Election Day, the incumbent trailed in most polls. Then to Georgia, where 2 Republican Senate seats are up for grabs. That includes a special election, which could go to a January runoff if no candidate clinches 50% of the vote. Let's bring in Nick Oxner and Greg Bluestein.
実は調べたらわかります。
Investigative reporter for our CBS affiliate in Charlotte, WBTV. He's at the Mecklenburg County Board of Elections. And Greg is a political reporter at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Welcome. It's great to have you.
3時間ぐらいだっけな。
I want to start with you and some breaking news. North Carolina's State Board of Elections is holding an emergency meeting to consider extending voting times at additional precincts. What's the latest?
Yeah, Lane, they've actually extended voting at 4 precincts earlier in the day. They're meeting right now, still ongoing, to consider requests to extend voting at another 7 additional precincts. Those counties in the suburb of Mecklenburg here in the Charlotte area, Sampson County, which is in the southeastern part of the state, near Bladen County, which you remember, Lane.
もう西海岸はほぼ民主党決まりなんで。 やっぱこう東海岸から勝負がついていく、フロリダ、ペンシルベニアで勝負がついていくんだろうなと思うんですよね。割と、まあ、それがいつ出るかがポイントなんですけどね。
Yeah, that support actually helps Tom Tillis. As we've talked about over the last few months, Tillis was actually underperforming the president.
なんか家でステーキしてこんな美味しいことはないっていうか、なんかやっぱ肉がちょっと違うね、アメリカの肉。
So we've seen that problem, that gap narrow considerably. We've seen Tillis with Trump. Trump's been in the state a lot over the last days and weeks, and Tillis has been on stage with him just about every chance he can get. And as a result, you started to see, because of that and probably some other things, you started to see that gap between Tillis and Cunningham close considerably.
Well, Greg, Georgia is the only state with both Senate seats on the ballot. How should we expect that to impact turnout?
なんかジョージアとかでもひっくり返せるんじゃねえかって話があるんだけど、ジョージアひっくり返したらすごいことだけどね。でも投票率が 60% いけば俺相当バイデンが圧倒的に勝てると思うんですけど、投票率がどれぐらいいくか。ハル君はアメリカ大統領選の投票率は予想してないのかな。さすがにそれはしてないのかな。
Well, Greg, for this special election, Senator Kelly Loeffler is in a crowded field. That includes going against Republican Congressman Doug Collins. How is having two well-known Republicans on the ballot impacting the GOP's chances of holding on to the seat?
うめえけど食い切れないぐらい焼いた。うめえ。肉食い切れないなんて幸せ。
Backing either Doug Collins or Kelly Loeffler, and there's little chance of a clean sort of reuniting later on this week or next week, however long it takes to count the ballots. There's still going to be some lingering tension.
髪がうまいね、アメリカは。髪がうまい。
Well, Nick, let's turn to the presidential race. President Trump clinched North Carolina by about 3.5 percentage points in 2016. He visited the state yesterday in his final campaign swing. Here's some of what he told voters.
Get out and vote. That's all I ask. Just take a little time and
てかね、もうアメリカが全力でトランプを倒そうとしてる感じがする。アメリカっていうかその変な陰謀論とかじゃなくて、この世の中文化とか。
So how has the Trump campaign focused on North Carolina, and is there any evidence that the message is resonating with the voters on the ground?
本気を出してる感じです。
Well, and I think the biggest evidence is just look at most public polling in the last week or two has the race between Biden and Trump in North Carolina down.
トランプ派はこういう心の流れからこういう疎外感からトランプ派になったんじゃないかみたいな俺がさこっちでこう初めてこう体験的に理解したことを昨日喋ってたじゃん。なんかあれを見てトランプの差別を認められないとか言って書いてくる人がいるんだけど、俺が6月からもうどんだけアメリカのブラック・ライブズ・マターの現場にいたか分かっててそれ言うのって思うよね。どうなってんのかなと思うね。どんだけ俺がアメリカのブラック・ライブズ・マターの現場で何枚写真撮った何時間映像回したと、それでトランプの人種差別認められないみたいに俺に言われてもさ、どうなっとんなと思うよね、日本人のそういう感じ。まあ日本人だけじゃないと思うけどさ、まあそっかしいんだよね。
Yeah, it really does sort of underscore the importance of your state. All right, Nick Oxner and Greg Bluestein, great to have you both. Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up, the role the Latino vote will play in the battleground of Nevada. Why the economy and not immigration is a top issue for voters. Stay with us. You're streaming Red and Blue.
トランプを認めるなんて俺どこにも書いてないし、てかどんだけ記事書いてもツイッター1行しか読まないで反論してくるやつがいるんですね。ネトウヨじゃなくてさ、ネトウヨだったらもうなんかもうそれもダメだけどさ、でもなんか差別に反対する側の人がそれをやる時のなんか虚しさはあるよね。みたいな、そっち側の人がそれみたいなのすっごい寂しさあるよね。
Yes, it's my company. Hey, this is pretty fun.
There's more. Experience thought-provoking,
The idea of being a human being.
innovative, and truly
でもコメント欄もあんまり 意味がわからないことにはもう突っ込まないようにした。無駄に揉めてもしょうがないし。
Experts say the country should be prepared to not immediately know
マヨネーズかけちゃった。
and a number of other races.
ステーキにマヨネーズかけちゃった。美味しいから。だって美味しいんだもん。
As voters head to the polls today, it's becoming more and more uncertain if the country will have a projected winner of the presidency on November 3rd.
If the margin is close, like in any race, to get to a final tally, it always takes time.
UCLA political science assistant professor Dan Thompson says a record surge of mail-in votes triggered by the coronavirus pandemic could leave some states needing more time to count their ballots. The rules for processing and counting mail-in votes vary from state to state, and most begin processing those ballots before Election Day. But when it comes to actually counting the ballots, at least 30 states legally can't begin until Election Day. That includes Pennsylvania, where a handful of counties won't begin counting until November 4th.
Election administrators have been focused on this issue for many, many months, and I think by and large, they've been preparing for exactly these types of concerns.
In some states, mail-in ballots arriving after Election Day could also delay the final results. The question of how late those ballots will be accepted has prompted a number of legal challenges.
ドキドキしますね。
Just last week, the Supreme Court said absentee ballots in North Carolina can arrive up to
一緒にドキドキ
after November 3rd. This after the High
してく
Court
ださい。
decided
何言ってん
ballots
だ。
won't be accepted in Wisconsin if they arrive after the polls close on Election Day. Those outcomes are part of a record-setting.
何かが起こったらすぐ行く。外で俺飛び出していくからね。それも込みでドキドキしてください。何か起ころうもんならもう飛び出しますから私。本当に。この寒いのにでも何も起こさない。寒さがいい方に作用するかもね。こう寒くて出られないよみたいなさ。変なことが起きなければいいけど。寒いからね、本当に。でも寒さ、寒さで平和が訪れる可能性はあるね。
CBS News correspondent Enrique Acevedo joins me now from Las Vegas. Enrique, thanks very much for being with us. You have been talking to Nevada's Latino voters there. Let's go ahead and play a clip of an activist you spoke to who is supporting.
ニューハンプシャー、ニュージャージー、オークランド。あれ、フィラデルフィアも開くの ?8 時で開くまだ開かないはず。PA ってこと
And so, you know, the last minute scrambles where they kind of say, oh, you know, they don't want to come out and vote. But no, our community is engaged. Our community has cared for years, which is why we've made the strides that we've made.
Pennsylvania.
I wish that there were a lot more bigger ones, but I think that our community
何時に開
has
くね
proven that when it comes time for them to vote, they come and vote. And Nevada's the next little example of that.
ドキ
So
ドキす
what
る。
more are you hearing about the level of enthusiasm among Latino voters in Nevada and across
ドキ
the
ドキしま
country?
すね。
I can tell you from the people that we've spoken to, Elaine, that enthusiasm among
ジョージア、インディアナ、ケンタッキー、サウスカロライナ、読めない、バーモント、バージニア。
But we're also seeing how Latinos are behaving more and more like the rest of the electorate.
結構やっぱ今日投票行く人いるんだと思って結構びっくりした。これだけやってるからさ、郵便投票もやってるけど今日ちゃんと投票行くんだと思って結構びっくりした。
We spoke to culinary union workers. They have over 60,000 members, a majority of them women of color. They've been canvassing all over the state. They told us they knocked on over 400,000 doors.
州によって投票の時間違うのも意味が分かんないね。その時差以外にも違いますよね。なんか長さが。 すげえ不思議だよ。時差だけじゃないんだもんね。どういうことなんだろう、州によって投票の時間が違うって。
It's also one of the states with the highest unemployment rates across the entire country.
Well, the pandemic has hit Nevada's economy hard because so much of it is tourism-based. You spoke with a member of the state's Latinos and Trump advisor who dismissed any connection to the president's policies and blamed Nevada's Democratic governor. Let's play that.
The Latino community that we've been speaking to, they see that and they want to have
菅義偉の予算委員会やばいね。菅義偉のなんかすごいね。安倍晋三よりももっといいところがない感じ。すごいね。
So, Enrique, what else have people told you about how the pandemic is affecting their vote?
Well, although a majority of Latinos identify as Democrats, many support President Trump. And I think Jesus Marquez, the head of the Latino vote for Trump in Arizona and Nevada, was making a point about how this is not a monolithic community, about how many Latinos were happy with the way President Trump was handling the economy. This is pre-COVID, and they want to get back to that as soon as possible. The challenge, of course, is many Americans would agree, is doing that in a way that respects and addresses the necessity of
朝一枝野さんなの。すごいね。じゃあもうすぐ枝野さんじゃん。さん付けしてあるこれ。枝野さんにさん付けしちゃった。ちゃんとさん付けしよう。みんな枝野さんだぞ。
Well, that's the question in everyone's minds, not just here in Nevada, but across the country. Votes are being counted here in Nevada as we speak. Volunteers and staffers are working on this. They've been working on counting votes since October 15. And people are still in line to try to cast their votes. We expect this to continue throughout the day. And as soon as we hear from them and from our decision desk...
どうしよう。ステーキが美味しすぎてなんか幸せが込み上げてきてる。こんなにやっぱ自分で料理してさうまくいくとなんかあれだね、人が作ったよりも倍美味しいというかさ、美味しさ以上のなんかこう多幸感が出るね。その人が作って美味しいのもいいけど自分が美味しく作れた時の多幸感やばいね。
Senior advisors in the Trump campaign describe what they're feeling as a quiet confidence. Now, in 2016, they say they had a ton of enthusiasm. They knew it was out there, but no campaign structure or organization. This time around, they know that they have enthusiasm on the ground. We've seen it at the president's many rallies, but they also have a Get Out the Vote campaign and a field team that is working into the hours tonight to turn out those voters in key battleground states like Pennsylvania and Florida. Now, there are still nerves among some GOP officials because the president is largely on defense, defending the states he won back in 2016. And the most obvious path to 270 electoral votes requires that the president defend states like Florida, North Carolina, Arizona, and Georgia, and pick up either Pennsylvania, Michigan, or Wisconsin. Now that is a tall order for this campaign.
And Bo, what about the Biden campaign?
Talking to sources yesterday and today, they all tell me that they are optimistic. It seems like they put in the work and that the results are happening both in early voting and today they're getting the numbers that they expected to and wanted to get. In the past couple of days, there's been some more hesitancy around Florida. Maybe it's looking like it's a little bit more competitive and maybe...
俺なんかこのステーキうまく焼けたから大丈夫な気がする。
But they're especially feeling confident in Michigan and Wisconsin. Joe Biden actually recently just spoke. He just arrived back into Delaware after campaigning in Scranton and Philadelphia, and he said he likes what he's seeing with women voters, young voters, African American voters, and especially those older voters over 65. He says he is confident that we will see the blue wall, but he's waiting to see if that blue wall kind of goes south to Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona, that area as well.
All right. Well, I know you two have
ま
spent
だ明るいとこもあるんだ
an
ね。
amount of time covering the campaign trail. This is not at all the campaign
時差
trail
すごいあ
that
る。
we
3時
envisioned
間もあるからね。
when all of this started. But I do want to ask, starting with you, Nicole, what was the highlight
てか
of
何度も言う
covering
けど
your candidate?
日照時間が短いよな。
I think the biggest highlight for all of us, Elaine, is getting to meet
沖縄住んでるから
some
さ、
of these battleground states.
沖縄日照時間がすげえ長い
Electoral
気がする。
votes and the horse race and what the candidate did when and where was their campaign advertising that was spent. But at the end of the day, America decides who wins this election, and voters that have opened their homes prior to COVID-19 allowed us to talk to them, shared their concerns about this upcoming election with us. That has been a real highlight for me on the campaign trail.
What about you, Bo?
なんか情報あったらどんどん入れてくださいね。もう少しでステーキ食べ終わるんで、優雅にステーキ作って食べちゃう。
They were saying you really did not know how
本当に美味しい。
actually felt, even though it seemed pretty rocky those 18 days between New Hampshire and South Carolina. And when you saw Joe Biden get that
ニンニクと醤油とワインビネガーで自分でソース作っちゃった。あ、なんだ。だな。呼び捨てにしてる。枝ね。よし、宝漬け。ごちそうさまでした。
これより会議を開きます。予算の実施状況に関する件について調査を
日本の政治家の声だな。
まさにお別れをいたします。
日本の政治家の声って
調
マジ
査のため本日
時代劇
政府
みたい
参考人として内閣官房内閣審議官川辺栄一郎君、内閣官房調査検討室長、
この間ハリボテ、昨日ハリボテ見たばっかりだから。
内閣
この
大臣官房
間って言って
総合政策推進
ハリボテ見たばっかりだから笑っちゃうわ。こういう自民党らしいおじさん出てくると爆笑しちゃうわ。ハリボテ面白いからみんなぜひ見てください。
総務省総合通信基盤局長竹内義明君、総務省統計局長佐伯修二君、厚生労働省健康局長正林徳明君、厚生労働省職業安定局長田中誠二君、厚生労働省雇用環境均等局長坂口隆君、厚生労働省社会援護局長
いろいろ情報を集めながら
農林水産省生産局長水田正和君、水産庁長官山口秀明君、海上保安庁長官奥島孝弘君の出席を求め説明を聴取いたしたいと存じますが、ご異議ありませんか。ご異議なしと認めます。よってそのように決しました。基本的質疑を行います。去る2日の枝健二君の質疑に関連し、枝野幸男君から質疑の申し入れがあります。 枝君の持ち時間の範囲内でこれを許します。枝野幸男君。
立憲民主党代表の枝野でございます。果実の代表質問でのお答え、あるいはおとといの同僚議員の質疑などを踏まえて、総理に基本的な考え方等についてお尋ねをしたいと思います。また残念ながら新型コロナウイルス感染症の新たな感染者の数がじわじわと増えている状況でございます。保健所、医療機関をはじめ関係機関の皆さんのご尽力に敬意を表するとともに、亡くなられた皆さんに哀悼の意を表し、患者の皆さんにお見舞いを申し上げます。この新型コロナウイルス感染症による影響で仕事を失われた方、そのことによって生活困窮に追い込まれている方、残念ながらこれが減るという状況にはまだなっていない、むしろ失業雇用状況は悪化をしている状況であります。代表質問でもそうした皆さんの立場に立った施策が必要であるということを申し上げました。特にその代表としてひとり親家庭、特に母子家庭において、従来から母親の仕事が非正規で低賃金という方が多い中で仕事を失われて困窮をされている方が多くなっています。代表質問で申し上げた支援団体の調査、認定 NPO 法人シングルマザーズフォーラムの調査では、児童扶養手当を受け取っているひとり親家庭の6割ではこの間収入が減少しており、1割は収入自体がゼロになっているという状況で、1日の食事は1回だけだとか、残っているお金はもう数千円とか、そういう声が多数届いております。参議院の代表質問で我が党の福山幹事長から7兆円の予備費を活用してでも年内にこうした家庭への臨時特別給付金2度目を支給するべきではないかというふうに提案をいたしましたが、残念ながら総理のご答弁は前向きのものはいただけませんでした。今3次補正などという話がいろいろ飛び交っていますが、3次補正では年が明けて実際に施行されるのはむしろ新年度になるかもしれないような状況です。この年末年始に向けてこのひとり親家庭に対する支援、年を越せないという声が多々あるという状況を総理と認識し、そして、この予備費の活用をお考えになりませんか。いかがですか。
インディアナ州トランプが取った。ちょっと待って。インディアナトランプが取った。
新型コロナウイルスの影響を踏まえて、
菅義偉。やべ、忙しい。インディアナトランプが取ったよ。
一人親家庭を緊急的に支援するために、第二次補正予算で
インディアナ早速トランプが。
支給を実施したところであります。今後の対応としては、
菅義偉さん。
さまざまな困難な課題。
何言ってるかわかんないんで、菅義偉さんは後にしました。
Black voters turned out in record numbers, galvanized in part by the Black Lives Matter movement, racial injustice, social injustice. People have sort of had it up to here, and they're speaking out in numbers that they haven't spoken before. But this right now is trending to be the most diverse electorate ever.
ケンタッキーも取ってる気がする。バーモント、ジョー・バイデンが取った。ニューハンプシャーもトランプ。まあ、ニューハンプシャートランプ取りそうなのかな。マジか。ケンタッキーとインディアナは規定ラインだけど、ニューハンプシャー、ニューハンプシャートランプ取りそうになってないこれ。やばいですね。ケンタッキー共和党勝利だ。ケンタッキー共和党勝利。ケンタッキー、インディアナも取ってるぞこれ。
But at a certain point, we want to see tonight, do President Trump's supporters empathize with him and say no one could have done any better?
ニューハンプシャートランプニューハンプシャーバイデンリードの世論調査出てたけど、いきなりトランプ取りそうになってる。やばくないですか
？They could win Florida and Pennsylvania and start to put this away early in the night. They could do well with smaller southeastern states like Georgia and North Carolina. The fact that Georgia's a toss-up at this hour, encouraging to them. They anticipate doing well in Arizona, possibly winning that state for Democrats for the first time in generations. But I think one of the big things to watch tonight, as we put together the puzzle, 51 pieces there, all 51 states and districts count a little differently. Some are going to count faster than others. Others are going to take several days. We're all going to learn how that process works out. We've had a load test of incredible proportions over the last 4 years, aren't we?
ジョージアも取ってないか？あ、消えた。パソコンがバグってる。バグらないで。バグらないで。今バグらないでいいの？どうして今バグるんだ？今バグるの？勘弁してください。今バグるのは勘弁してください。こつくのは今バグってんの。なんかわかんねえがアンインストールしてやる。こんなもんアンインストールしてやる。この部屋暗いんだよな。
Is that a swing state? What has it changed? Has it been called early? Have they won?
やっぱインディアナっぽいね。CBS ではあれだいぶチャンネルによって全然違うな。
I think has given some folks pause tonight, Sven.
All right, Hallie, leading us off at the White House. Thank you.
And Kristen Walker is at Biden headquarters in Delaware. Kristen, what's the move there? What's the story there?
あ、フロリダもトランプかなりリードしてるやん。やっぱトランプ強いな。インディアナ圧倒的トランプだ。まあまだ開票途中だけどね、8%。
They don't need Pennsylvania in order to win the White House. However, it is very difficult for President Trump to win re-election if he doesn't carry Pennsylvania. Of course, that's a state that he won back in 2016.
みんなペンシルベニアって言うね。
On the Keystone State. They like what they're hearing so far in terms of the turnout rate, so they are watching that very closely. But they're also, of course, watching the Midwest, that blue wall that did not hold for Hillary Clinton. Biden has been there multiple times. Michigan, Wisconsin, urging people to get out and vote for him. He says to vote for change. So watching quite closely. They did say they don't want to be states like
町山さん、ホワイトハウスの前に。
those states would help Biden with a victory. So there is measured optimism concerns that Biden hasn't had the same aggressive campaign schedule that we have seen from President Trump. I asked a campaign official about that today. This official said, look, we feel confident. We feel as though we left it all out on the field. So now they are watching and waiting with the rest of the country.
All right, Kristen Walker, thank you.
As mentioned, there is a big battle over the United States Senate. Democrats need to pick up a net of 3 seats if they win the White House, or 4 if they don't. And here are some results. Too early to call, but this is a hot race in South Carolina between Lindsey Graham, the longtime senator, and Jamie Harris. And in Georgia, we got a couple of races tonight. This one also too early to call. John Ossoff, the Democrat, David Perdue, the Republican. Now we've got what they call a jungle primary. That's the technical term. Everybody's in it, and not just these three. It's too early to call.
Kentucky, Indiana.
Both of those Georgia's races could go to a runoff if no candidate gets to 50% in January.
All right, let's look at the Kentucky Senate race. 14% in. Too early to call. Mitch McConnell up against Amy McGrath. In Virginia, too early to call. And let's see where that leaves the Senate right now. A drum roll with this. Democrats with 35 seats, 30 for the Republicans.
Yeah, we haven't called any yet, but we've got Casey Hunt right here in New York with us. She's watching the Senate very closely. Casey, what are the
こんな早くでも勝敗わかるんだね、州ごとの勝敗。やばいな、面白いなこれ。
The Sun Belt suburbs. So, what does that mean? We've talked a little bit already about
また1時間後に票開くでしょこれ。すごいね、じわじわ開いてくからなんかすごいね。ずっとこれ緊張感が続くね。だれることないね。フロリダも多分トランプ取ったんだろうね。ジョージアもフロリダもやっぱトランプだろうねこれね。次 DC ペンシルベニアだ。まあ DC はさ絶対にバイデンだけどさ、ペンシルベニアだよね。
Mark Kelly, who's a Democratic challenger. Many Republicans think that that race may already be gone for Martha McSally, the incumbent, and if that's the case, it's all about those suburbs of Phoenix. And then the big surprise, of course, tonight, Savannah, potentially in Texas. We don't always think about suburbs, but it really is. Houston, Dallas area places. There is a Senate race in Texas. John Senator is an incumbent there. We have expected him to do better than President Trump in Texas. It's one of actually only a few places where you have a Republican senator who's running ahead of the president.
インディアナがこんな早く当確が出てるのが結構驚きなんだよね。もうなんか裏返ったりもしそうだよねこの状況だと。だって 1% 差の戦いとかだったらさ、絶対裏返る可能性あるよね。
Those are the places that I think are really going to determine control of the Senate through the night.
Well, everything's bigger in Texas, Casey, including the turnout that we've seen so far of the roughly 10 million votes, which is about 10% of all the early votes that have been cast so far.
All right, Chuck, a lot of folks watching tonight are going to get an answer tonight. What's the road? How do we get there?
Well, by the way, watch the Texas turnout. If it's 17 million, that's what Democrats tell me they would need to actually pull that off. So watch that tonight. Well, I'm going to take you through our sort of how to watch tonight a little bit and this idea, what are we going to know and what aren't we going to know? Look, at the end of the day, we know that these three states are not going to be reporting tonight, at least there's a chance Wisconsin could get a bunch of vote in before the Today Show, which is always my measurement here, before the Today Show. Right. Michigan and Pennsylvania.
TBS の人いる。
How do you want to watch tonight? Well, we know we're going to see these early states here first. North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida.
ペンシルベニア州って書いてある。ペンシルベニア州のどこなんだよ。なんかそういうとこが腹立つよね日本の。ペンシルベニア州のどこなんだよ。ペンシルベニア州どこか言えよ。
Nebraska here for now, put it in the Biden column. So you can see everything we can do. And then here's the situation though. If the president doesn't win these Sunbelt states, and any of them, you know, if he doesn't win these Sunbelt states, right now we're going to put him in red like he did the last time. But if he just loses, as you can see here, if he just loses...
あれ、フロリダ青になってるとこあるぞ。
Doesn't get close. You've got Arizona, which would be a problem if that gets in there. If Wisconsin and Michigan end up blue, and they lean blue right now, you start to see where just one of these Sunbelt states starts to do it, and if he gets a second, then suddenly Pennsylvania no longer is here. But for the president, if he is able to hang on...
フロリダまだ開いてない、そっか、まだ閉まってないのに、期日前じゃなくて、出口調査の結果で、なんかどっちが優勢とか出てるっぽいね、今。
one flip by Biden there, and suddenly the president's path gets really complicated. Two flips, and we have an idea of who the next president's going to be.
All right, Chuck, we'll be watching. Those Sunbelt states are better at voting early and counting early, so we'll see. It might decide how long this night really is. We're going to take a quick break right here. Much more ahead. The latest results when we continue with Election Night 2020 in just a moment.
2020っていう言い方全員可愛いよね。男でも女でも2020っていう全員可愛いなって思う。言われるたびに。
This fall, we're right there with you, whether you're back to school or back to work. We're keeping you safe. Every morning on Today.
Police murder of unarmed black men has been an American way of death across centuries. After seeing the most comprehensive police reform bill ever introduced in Congress, I've begun to wonder if now is the time. If now is the time the protesters finally win.
The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell, weeknights at 10 on MSNBC.
You ready to go to work?
I'm so ready to go to work.
She's Joe Biden's choice to be next in line. But who is Kamala Harris? Join me, Joy Reid, as I explore her life's journey from Oakland to Washington on my 6-part podcast, Kamala, Next in Line. New episodes every Monday. Subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts.
A real close-knit group of nurses who pulled together when their boss needed help battling coronavirus. You're not just any patient, you're their friend.
These folks saved my life. Thank God that there are people who want to run towards a pandemic as opposed to running away from a pandemic.
あ、みんなインディアナに頭角出してるな。インディアナにトランプの頭角が出ている。あれフロリダバイデンリードっていう。あれフロリダ閉まったのこれ。フロリダ開票始まってないこれ。
Are people there concerned about what impact this could have on the election?
It's news made for your streaming world.
どういうこっちゃ。フロリダ開票始まってる。票数が出てんだけど間違ってんの。
Watch what they do, not what they say.
President Trump and Joe Biden hit the center of this campaign, coronavirus story.
暗いと目が悪くなりそう。あと暗いとちょっと眠くなるね。
If you were sitting here talking to Joe Biden and President Trump, what would you want to tell them right now? On the ground.
The withstanding these flames are expected to last another 24 hours.
And in depth. We now have 2 vaccine trials on hold. Should people be concerned?
NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Welcome back to Election Night 2020 on NBC News.
We've got some numbers coming in. Let's look at the Virginia presidential race. And right now, that's too early, but we can report that Biden is leading.
バージニア出たよ。
Let's look at Georgia. It's a swing state this year. We don't usually say that. It's too early to call, but we're starting to
ジョージアバイデン取りそうじゃね。
there as well.
In Vermont, we can project that Joe Biden is the winner in Vermont.
バーモント取った。バーモントバイデン取った。
Yeah, that's a new call. Yeah, well, we just got that in. Yeah, but not a surprise, but yes. Okay, let's go to Rahima Ellis. She's in Philly, where, of course, the Democrats are really hoping on a high turnout to kind of break out what happens in other parts of the state. Rahima, what do you see?
What we're seeing here, Savannah, is that right now in this Philadelphia area that we're in, the voting has been quiet because it was very heavy in days leading up to this. They got a lot of mail-in ballots that were brought into the state, as you know. So many people went out and online stood in line in order to cast their ballots early.
なんでフロリダ
We found out that one of the things that they were really concerned about here
フロリダ開票始まってんの
which is one of the reasons why so many people mailed in their ballots. For the
なぜで
first
すか
time, they had over 400,000 mail-in ballots requested for this election, a presidential election, and they received more than 330,000 before this election day began. So that's why they think that they didn't have very long lines here. But the other counts of the parts of the state, they did have long lines. One of the things that's really important here is that they tell us that it is not likely they're going to be able to call
冷房入ってんだけどこの家。待ってよこれ。ちょっと待ってよ。冷房入ってたよこの家。アホかよ。
Postmarked tonight by 8 o'clock. They will be counted even up till Friday. Savannah?
All right, Rahima, thank you. And Chuck, you've been
冷房寒いと思ったら冷房入ってたよこの家。なんなんだよ。冷房ってなんだよこれ。寒いと思ったんだよ。冷房入ってたよ。
When Democrats do well in southern states, they have to essentially perform better with some white voters. They have to get to the 30% mark. Here's what's interesting in Georgia. The last time, and you can see it here, the last time a Democrat carried Georgia was in 1992. It was Bill Clinton, which is also the last time that any Democrat got more than 30% of the white vote. Right now, Joe Biden is sitting at exactly 30% of the white vote. You can see 2004, 2016. So the last time it's been there, it's a magic number to watch there, that 30% mark. That is usually what Democrats need in Georgia, assuming they have the African-American turnout they need. And right now in Georgia, it looks like it. That is why right now Democrats are so bullish in Georgia.
And real quickly, until we have vote, we're talking exit polls. Those exit polls are including day of vote and also surveys conducted of early voters.
It is, and look, and we've seen this before. The exit polls can, overstate by a point or two. We were able to, as we see real returns come in, we match it. We're able to reweight it. There's always a chance that it's at 2 points, but the point is this. Winning candidates, winning Democrats in states like Georgia get 30% of the white vote.
フロリダなんで
saying that. Let's see what the real returns say.
フロリダ開票始まってるんだよねデータでわかんないちょっとこの謎はまだやっぱフロリダマジでジョージアもバイデンリードしてるけどなんでジョージアもバイデンリードしてるよいや僕全部いろんなの見てます CNN もワシントンポストも4つぐらい全部ずっと見てます TBS も見てるし
As the election unfolds, get trusted facts. Free access today at WSJ.com.
Want to stand out online? Go to Wix.com and create a professional website that's sure to get you noticed.
Is that a
race from every angle.
If you were sitting here talking to Joe Biden and President Trump, what would you want to tell them right now?
On the ground.
The winds standing these flames are expected to last another 24 hours.
And in depth.
We now have 2 vaccine trials on hold. Should people be concerned?
NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good morning. Welcome to Today. We're glad to have you with us.
This fall, to work, we're keeping you safe. Every morning on Today.
Police murder of unarmed black men has been an American way of death across centuries. After seeing the most comprehensive police reform bill ever introduced in Congress, I've begun to wonder if now is the time. If now
ドキドキしますな。
the protesters
やべえですな。
finally win.
Weeknights at 10 on MSNBC. For breaking news in our changing world.
TBS とか見なくていいか。NHK と TBS は見なくていいか。CNN、ワシントンポスト、NBC ぐらいでしょうか。
Welcome back. At bottom of the hour, we're going to get a poll closing in North Carolina. That's a biggie.
Yeah, 7:30 Eastern is when we should begin a poll closing for North Carolina. This is the state that the Democratic governor ran afoul, of course, of the president over the Republican National Convention and COVID.
Yeah, and it's a Senate battleground, it's a presidential battleground, and it could tell the whole story.
おー、ジョージア、アトランタの市長、ケイシャ・ライン・ボトムスがやっぱ重要な役割かも。すごい好き俺あの人。
For white voters, 46% say it is the economy. They're exactly reversed.
North Carolina, by the way, is one of those states. There's not a lot of swing areas. It is margins.
ケイシャ・ライン・ボトムスってアトランタの市長だよね。ジョージア州知事じゃないよね。どっちだっけ？アトランタ市長だよね。
Big blue counties or big red counties. Red in the rural areas, blue in the urban areas. It's about running up the score, and each side is trying to run that up in these key southern states. There's a lot more of that.
開票が始まってますよ。トランプがインディアナを取りました。ジョージア州知事ブライアン・ケンプか。まあでもインディアナは分かってたんで今のところは大丈夫です。今のところは。でもなんかジョージアが結構バイデンが取りそうなんじゃないかっていう話があって、ジョージアをバイデンが取ると結構話が変わってきます。だいぶ圧勝パターンになるんじゃないかっていう気がする。ジョージアの16はでかいでしょ。アトランタ。オバマが昨日入ってたのかな。あ、オバマはフロリダか。
Join me, Joy Reid, as I explore her life's journey from Oakland to Washington on my 6-part podcast, Kamala, Next in Line. New episodes every Monday. Subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts.
やっぱり NHK の前回のやつを残して。見とこう。いろいろ情報そっちからもあれば書き込んでください。
Perspectives by experts you know and trust for a better understanding of the stories that matter most. Check out the MSNBC Daily today at msnbc.com.
You're watching NBC News Now. We've got some breaking news.
Are people there concerned about what impact this could have on the election?
It's news made for your streaming world.
これジョージア勝ったらすげえことになるな。ジョージアって前回ヒラリーはすごい負けてるやん。5%、まあすごいでもないか。
President Trump and Joe Biden hit the center of this campaign, coronavirus, the story. The battleground blitz as we enter the final stretch of the 2020.
バトルグラウンドだ。2020だ。
President Trump, what would you want to tell him right now? On the ground.
The winds standing these flames are expected to last another 24 hours.
And in depth.
We now have 2 vaccine trials on hold. Should people be concerned?
NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
はい。
We are coming up at the bottom of the hour. We're going
松山さん生配信してる。
Ohio and West Virginia, that's just moments away, but we've already gotten some polls closed tonight. Georgia being one of them. This is a battleground this year. It's too early to call at this hour.
And Kentucky, South Carolina also.
松山さんの生配信2秒ぐらいで終わってる。なんだろう。あ、ウケる。松山さんが中継してる。
And let's talk about North Carolina. Chuck, I mean, this is going to be one of those states that might really tell the whole story.
みんな大げさ太郎みたいになってきたな、世の中。よかったよかった。松山さんがめっちゃ中継してる。よかったよかった。みんな大げさ太郎になってしまえ。
And when Barack Obama won it in 2008, he just had a bigger share of African American voters. So the real question is going to be, did Joe Biden get an African American turnout that looks more like the Obama-Biden?
Here's the numbers just came in for North Carolina. This is what we have right now. Too early to call, but our first numbers as the polls close in North Carolina, Ohio.
自分が泣いてる動画見てまた泣きそうになっちゃった。
Closing as well. It's too early to call, but we've got the president in the lead as expected. So where does it shake out on that map? To 270 elections.
ジョージア取ったら結構相当な勝ちムードになるよ。
Yeah, long road to 270, but certainly we've been watching Ohio. Joe Biden late in the game decided to put Ohio on his expanded map, so we'll see.
Look, the place to watch Ohio.
どうなんだろう。トランプが負けたらさすがにポートランドの人たちとかプロテストやめるのかな。そうだよね。やめるっていうか、プロテストをないがしろにする扱いがなくなるよね。多分まずトランプがやらしてるから。これすごいな。よく考えたらいろいろ。
Went to for a rally, but actually said, I believe to the Erie voters, I didn't think I'd have to come here. I didn't think I'd have to push it so hard. But every vote in Pennsylvania is being fought for.
That's right, Savannah. In fact, he said, I didn't want to have to come here. I didn't want to have to, as you say, fight for it, which is not necessarily a traditional message from any political candidate to a group of people where you're standing there and you're asking.
あ、フロリダトランプリードってか。みんなツイッター書き込むときどこの情報か書いてほしいよね。結構会社によってさ情報錯綜してるからさ、どこの情報。コロラド先生がトランプが善戦している辛いって書いてある。
Democrats have been losing support generally among white voters, and we've covered extensively all of those people, those blue-collar folks who maybe voted for Obama twice and then flipped and voted for Donald Trump. And could Joe Biden stem the bleeding there? And our exit polls are showing some early signs that it's possible that that's the case in places like Georgia as well. Now that of course could also be suburbs. In states like Ohio and especially in Pennsylvania are also
トランプがホワイトハウスで今夜250人を招きパーティーを開く予定。なんだそれ。
So those are still, some of the areas I think my sources are focusing on as I've been in touch with strategists throughout the early evening. If we're talking about Pennsylvania specifically, I would say Democrats are pretty optimistic that they're going to hit what they need to hit in terms of turnout and organization in Pennsylvania to get Joe Biden across the finish line there. Of course, everyone's still very nervous and reluctant to say that out loud until we get more confidence.
この夏ポートランドに配備された国土安全保障省のエージェントの多くは法執行官として行動する権限を持っていませんでしたっていうすげえニュースが出てるけど、やばいニュース。全然ロー&オーダーじゃねえじゃんっつって爆笑してる。これやばい。すげえな、めちゃくちゃだな、やっぱ。まあ嘘つきに大統領やらしたらそれはめちゃくちゃになるわっていう話だよ。ノースカロライナ細かく出てるわ。
And I want to pay particularly attention here in the Fayetteville area and some of these counties. You see this block of blue counties here. All right, let me take you to 2016. You can see some of those blue counties went away. So let me just show you what this means when we talk about a margin state, as I was talking about. So let me give you to some of those counties here. Let me get this off of here. And this is the type of stuff. So right now, Robinson County, we don't have any vote here. But here's where I can show you about why turnout matters. So in 2016, Donald Trump carried Robinson County, all right? But if you look at here, when Barack Obama carried it, he carried it with 58 and 57% of the vote. This county is basically almost 50% African American. It is a turnout county. As you can see, when the African American vote doesn't turn out, that county goes red. When the African American vote turns out, that county goes blue. And so this is what I mean when I was talking about, we're talking about margin counties here. So in order for this to go blue tonight, you're going to need to see a block of blue down here, not just a little bit of blue in these key counties with heavy African American voting.
All right, Chuck, let's go to Kelly O'Donnell right now in Columbus, Ohio to set the scene there. Kelly?
Well, Lester, right now, a couple of minutes past the closing of polls, all those early votes are actually being tabulated. And sources that I've been speaking with say expect those to go strongly for Joe Biden. But that will give perhaps a skewed perspective of the night. Both elected officials, senior elected officials in both parties say they expect Biden at big margins in the cities. But the president's strength, they believe, is in the more rural areas where they argue that they've been able to identify and turn out new voters favorable to President Trump.
今からでも間に合う。大げさ太郎の
So one of the key questions will be watching what may be early returns for Biden, and can the president chip away at that and overtake it? The Trump campaign believes they've got to win Ohio. No Republicans won the White House without it. Democrats think it's within reach for Joe Biden, and they say look to the suburbs for where Joe Biden, they believe, has performed better than Hillary Clinton from 4 years ago, better than President Trump. So Ohio's a lot about history, and in this case, it's about new expectations. So it will take some patience tonight, but they expect to have votes coming in soon. But it's about watching the pace of the night, and can the president overtake what they expect to be that early Joe Biden lead. Both Biden and President Trump campaigned here not as much as some of the other battlegrounds, but Ohio is critical to get to that piece that's needed for 270. 18 electoral votes are on the line here. Lester?
All right, Kelly, thank you.
Well, let's turn to Florida. I can't believe we
すごい
haven't
かっ
talked
こいい位
about
置にこの
Florida tonight.
あれがあるんだ
Let
ね。
me show you what we got in Florida right now. We are. And I'm going to just show you what we got a lot of vote in, okay? We got over 7 million votes. And Florida is one of those that does its early vote. In fact, let's show off our toys here, as I said we were going to do, right? As you can see, the orange is early and absentee. You see the same day vote. People that voted today is here in yellow. And then we have a bunch of gray vote here. We expect nearly 12 million voters. So we shall see. So we think there's another, 3.5 to 4 million, maybe 4.5 million more votes to go. So anyway, just something to look there. So how are we watching Florida tonight? You don't win Florida the same way twice. All right, that is something that I think I want to remind people. But let me just start here with what we're, all night tonight I'll do these, what I call Trump Dem counties. And what these were counties that Trump carried in 16, but the major Democratic statewide candidate in 18 carried. Well, in the state of Florida, that was Duval, that was Seminole, and that was Pinellas. This was the governor's race there. Andrew Gillum, which was
ちなみにこれ外とかでどっかプロテストとかさすがにプロテスト今夜やってるやつはいないだろうな。今夜は結果に集中しろよって感じだもんね。今夜はやってないだろうな。
Right now, very narrow Biden. So you can see what we were looking at over the last 3 election cycles. This is the toy that I love the best. The fact I could do this.
エレクションデイのお祭りみたいなのが
This is one of the few bellwether counties that there's left. Most things are margins, as I've been saying here. Obama narrowly carried it by a bigger number, as you can see there in 08.
ワシントン DC の中継か。
89%, so we think there's not much vote, but Biden a very narrow lead. All that tells me. By the way,
今このさ DC のさホワイトハウス前にいる人たちってさ、これどっちが勝つかによってさ、大喜びになるか、もしくはなんか地獄っていうかなんかそのまま暴れるか、どっちに転がるか分かんないよね。よく行くよね。町山さんもよく言うわ。 こはでもすげえピースフルな場所なんだけどね、俺ずっといたけど。
This is a terrible margin for him, 54%. Not
Explain
good.
that it's the Latino vote in
This
South
is,
Florida.
and it's a
Explain.
different type of Latino vote. It's the Cuban American vote. It's
バーモントだっけ、バイデン勝ったよね。
Obama's lowest number was 58, and he did carry the state. Biden is not matching
バーモント
that.
取った。
Obama got 62 out of here. Look, what Hillary Clinton did in Miami-Dade 4 years ago is why, if you recall 4 years ago, I'm going, oh my goodness, look at these numbers she's hitting here. She's going to win Florida. And then, of course, Donald Trump overwhelmed with turnout in some of the more rural counties. But if Joe Biden, he's not getting close to this. This could be the reason he doesn't win Florida, because Donald Trump has made it. If there's one constituency group in the state of Florida that he is focused on, it is Cuban Americans, Venezuelan Americans. They did all sorts of policy rollouts there. This was one of the few times where they used the
TBS の開票速報がすげえ早いんだけど、どっから情報を得てんのこれ。なんかアメリカのメディアより TBS の方が早いんだよね。何なんだろうこれ。
Nobody wins Florida the same way twice. So there is not to say Biden can't do this if he overperforms in some of these northern counties, which we're seeing him do. This is a potential trouble spot right now that we're following when it comes to these Miami-Dade.
Mr. Walker has spent a fair amount of time in Florida recently. Kristen, Joe Biden making an appeal and appeared to be doing well among older voters.
Well, that's right. Older voters, independent voters. Lester, and I just heard from a campaign official who said, look, they feel good about the turnout in Broward County. But to Chuck's point about Miami,
ニューハンプシャーもバイデンっぽいですね。
that area for the past week or so, they have been concerned about the turnout in Miami-Dade, and that's why you
ケンタッキー、インディアナ、ノースカロライナ、トランプがほぼ確定で、ニューハンプシャー、ベルモント。ベルモントでいいのかな。ベルモントはバイデン。
the battleground of battleground states. What we also saw in Florida, Lester, was really a tale of two campaigns. You had President Trump and Joe Biden on Thursday holding these competing rallies.
やばい、すごい。刻々と変わってく。オハイオ青になってる。そんなわけある？オハイオジンクス？いやまだ票。あ、ジョージア結局赤になったわ。これコロッコロ色変わってくんだね。
Kristen, thanks very much.
Let's turn to Casey Hunt. She's got some reporting on Duval County, which is, I guess, the northeastern part of the state. What are you hearing?
Yeah, Chuck was just talking about this. It's the area around Jacksonville, and I was actually just exchanging notes with a couple of sources about what's going on there, because some Democrats think that the early results seem to be stronger for Biden than maybe anticipated. But I'm also told by others who've been tracking this data very closely that they're not sure.
いや、俺結構接戦だと思うんだよね。FOX のやつも見よう。
The other thing I would highlight, though, Savannah, is Broward County. For all of the trouble that Chuck correctly highlighted, that President Trump former Vice President Joe Biden is potentially having in Miami-Dade County, Democrats are really paying attention to Broward.
ウエストバージニアって書いとるから。
To the north, where we could see those suburban women who have been so frustrated with President Trump really play a pretty significant role. There's also, of course, questions, as you were talking about with Kristen, about seniors in that spot. So if the turnout there is very, very strong, if Democrats really show up in the numbers that some are hopeful, we could see Broward County is one place where they're hoping they can counterbalance what's going on in Miami-Dade just to the south.
Andrew, you want to weigh in here?
Yeah, just to weigh in on Miami-Dade, the real problem, I think, early on is labeling Joe Biden as a socialist. And the fact that the Biden campaign was very slow to respond to that, also didn't canvass. Because of COVID, they were not canvassing. The Trump campaign has been canvassing in
早起きしたからめちゃくちゃ眠い。
Biden campaign only came in recently. That's why they sent Barack Obama in twice in just the last couple of weeks, the last week. And in fact, it may not be enough to overcome that advantage. And also the policies that Chuck was referring to, policies on Cuba and Venezuela, coming out of the State Department, they have been just pouring this stuff.
タバコちょっと吸ってくる俺。
Attract those Latin American.
バージニアバイデン勝利？マジで？
And the socialism label you're saying kind of stuck to Joe Biden.
あ、バージニアはそうか。バージニアはまあそうだね。バージニアはもともと前回もそうだ。バージニアはそうだ。読み一応今のところ読みの 通りに来てるよね。バージニアも落とせなかったもんね。バージニア落としちゃダメだと。今のところ全部規定路線で予想通りの値動きというかさ、来てるね。僕の入門編に書いた通りの読み通りに今のところ動いています。
Look, turnout was almost identical, if you will, from 12 to 16. The Romney number, the Trump number out of Duval is coming here. But, I mean, look at now. We're sitting already. Trump has more vote than any Republican's ever gotten in Duval, and he may lose it. And Biden's got 50,000. But one of the things that I've noticed that could help out Joe Biden if he's struggling in Miami-Dade is that just very carefully, you can see he's improving on Clinton's margins by 1 or 2 points in important counties along here. I'm going down.
まだ CNN インディアナ州しか出てないんだ。
Republicans, a lot of college-educated Republicans down here, snowbirds. And I'm just going to throw these counties. Watch the Clinton number, watch the Biden percentage, just so you can see here. He's just slightly improving on her by 2 points, almost across the board. That's a 3.5-point gain there in Charlotte County. This is here, Lee County. This is Fort Myers. As you can see, he's improved by 3.5 points. This is what
まあね、あれもういろんな会社によってでも TBS もバージニア・バイデン勝利出したよ。
Nobody wins Florida the same way twice.
I think that makes your point. You never put that puzzle together the same way twice. We'll get to your mom's house in the next break.
郵便投票最後に開票されるんだ。
Biggest wave of poll closings. It's coming up, including Florida and Pennsylvania. Just moments away. Stay with us right here on election night.
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
いや、こっからバイデン圧勝パターンも全然あるんですよ。っていうかバイデンがてかヒラリーが取れなかったところを2個とかひっくり返しただけでも圧勝になるわけだから。逆に言うとこっから普通に負けるパターンも全然ありますからね。注目です。どうなりますかね。バージニアトランプじゃないでしょ。今民主党で出てたよ。
If now is the time, if now is the time the protesters finally win.
できるだけどこのサイトを見たかを書いてください。情報を貼る場合は。ソースって言うんですけど。
But who is Kamala Harris? Join me, Joy Reid, as I explore her life's journey from Oakland to Washington on my 6-part podcast, Kamala, Next in Line. New episodes every Monday. Subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts.
ちょっと8時になる前に俺一回タバコ吸ってくんね。ちょっとみんなおしゃべりしといて。
Introducing the MSNBC Daily, featuring written perspectives by experts you know and trust for a better understanding of the stories that matter most. Check out the MSNBC Daily today at msnbc.com.
You're watching NBC News Now. We've got some breaking news.
Are people there concerned about what impact this could have on the election?
It's news made for your streaming world.
Watch what they do, not what they say.
President Trump and Joe Biden hit the center of this campaign, coronavirus, the story. The battleground blitz as we enter the final stretch of the
寒すぎて外にタバコ吸いに行くのやだな。
If you were sitting here talking to Joe Biden and President Trump, what would you want to tell them right now?
On the ground.
The wind-standing these flames are expected to last another 24 hours.
And in depth.
We now have 2 vaccine trials on hold. Should people be concerned?
NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
So imagine this, Florida.
タバコ吸いたいけど我慢しよう。加えとこう。
Let's bring in Hallie
火つ
Jackson
けない
at
で
the White House for more on that. Hallie?
That's one thing you might have been able to bet on before this night, Lester, if you will. I can tell you that based on some conversations with sources and our team's conversations inside the Trump orbit, there are advisors who are feeling good so far, although we note it's still early, about what Chuck was talking about with the rest of the team just before the break. Those numbers specifically in Miami-Dade County, and there are those inside the president's orbit who are really crediting the work being done with specifically Latino voters. This is an area that the president has been talking about publicly for weeks now. It's a place in his campaign. In almost every discussion that I've had with campaign advisors, we'll talk about how they are trying to boost turnout specifically among Latino and Latina voters because of Florida here, for example. There's this ad that has come out now in the past couple of weeks that the president and his team continue to refer to. They think it's resonating inside the Latino community. And then there's what Andrew was referencing too, the idea that the attacks on Joe Biden as potentially a socialist in the eyes of the Trump campaign as they're going after the former vice president has been effective. This is a message that for all of the perhaps lack of message discipline that President Trump himself may have had over the last 10 months or so, the campaign itself has been very focused on that particular attack line. We saw it at the convention here at the White House not 2 months ago, and we've seen it on the campaign trail consistently at the president's rallies. Lester?
All right, Hallie Jackson, thanks.
All right, let's go to Chuck. You're still looking
バージニア・バイデン確定。
Well, I did the West Coast, so I thought I'd do
ま
something
あバージニア落としたらもう目も当てらんないですからね。
used to be Volusia, if you remember,
今のところは何も
Volusia was a blue county at one
規
time.
定ライン
It's
で
been a
す。
swing county shifting
想
right.
定内です。ホリエモン
Another
です。
evidence, Joe Biden, 2
ゲ
points
サエモン
better
です。
than Clinton again, and you just keep going down on these Gold Coast counties. And again, I emphasize this Biden number is improving. What
フォックスがデモクラシー2020とか書いてんじゃねえよ。
third party vote. And remember, we've talked about that. One of the bigger differences between 16 and 20 is no Gary Johnson. You know, you look here, Gary Johnson got 3%.
フォックスのくせにデモクラシーとか書いてんじゃねえよ
Where's that
な。
3% all going? It looks like it's almost all going to Biden. Just think about that tonight when you think about the other states. If we're seeing a similar pattern here of third party vote, suddenly basically lumping into what the old Clinton number was, and that's your new Biden number. And as you see here, sorry, no, the 3, I saw you squint.
No, I'm squinting at the Trump in 2016, though. It says 181,000 votes, but he's got 195, so his number got better, too.
His number got better, but again, Biden's number is getting better faster.
All right, Chuck, thanks. We're going to take a break. Be back.
TBS さ早くない頭角が何なんだろう。バーモントの頭角だね。バーモントね。ベルモントじゃなくてバーモントね。
Join me, Joy Reid, as I explore her life's journey from Oakland to Washington on my 6-part podcast, Kamala, Next in Line. New episodes every Monday. Subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts.
Washington feels more chaotic than ever. It's my job to ask the tough questions, left and right, and help you make sense of it all. Washington feels more chaotic than ever. It's my job to ask the tough questions, left and right, and help you make sense of it all.
You ready to go to work?
I'm so ready to go to work.
She's Joe Biden's choice to be next in line. But who is Kamala Harris? Join me, Joy Reid, as I explore her life's journey from Oakland to Washington on my 6-part podcast, Kamala, Next in Line. New episodes every Monday. Subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts.
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
President Trump and Joe Biden hit the center of this campaign, coronavirus.
The story.
The battleground blitz as we enter the final stretch of the 2020 race.
From every angle.
If you were sitting here talking to Joe Biden and
俺痩せたな。
what do you want to tell him?
今気づいた。
The wind standing these flames are expected to last another 24 hours.
もうちょい痩せてよ。
And in depth.
もうちょい痩せたらほっぺの肉が取れるかも。
NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good morning, welcome to today. We're glad to have you with us.
This fall,
なんか痩せると女の子っぽくなるんだな、
we're
俺。
back to school. What do you guys think? We're excited. We're back to work. We're keeping you safe. I love feedback. Every morning on Today.
Police murder of unarmed black men has been an American way of death
これ結構次の8
for
時
centuries.
バーッと決まっていくよね。
Comprehensive police reform bill ever introduced in Congress. I've begun to wonder if now is the time. If now is the time the protesters finally win.
The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell. Weeknights at 10 on MSN.
女子力。
For breaking news in our changing
やっぱオハイオとか開票してるんだよね。オハイオなんて取っちゃったらもうオハイオジンクスですから。オハイオ50年間ぐらいオハイオ取った人が絶対大統領になってるんで、オハイオ取っちゃったらもう圧勝ムード出るかもしれない。あと4分でポールクロージング。ペンシルベニアもクロージングだよ。これでっかい。やばい。来るね。ビッグウェーブが来る。
Today, we're glad to have you with us. This fall, we're right there with you. Whether you're back to school, what do you guys think? We're excited. Or back to work.
ああ4分だね。オハイオ取ったらもう相当だよ。てかオハイオジンクスが湧き上がるよ。オハイオジンクス本当だったっていうのが出る。何なんだろうね、オハイオって。すごい不思議。
If now is the time, if now is the time the protesters finally win.
The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell. Weeknights at 10 on MSNBC.
She's Joe Biden's choice to be next in line. But who is Kamala Harris? Join me, Joy Reid, as I explore her life's journey from Oakland to Washington on my 6-part podcast, Kamala, Next in Line. New episodes every Monday. Subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts.
We're close-knit group of nurses pulled together when their boss needed help battling coronavirus. You're not just any patient, you're their friend.
These folks say, thank God that there are people who want to run towards a pandemic as opposed to running away from a pandemic.
Introducing the MSNBC Daily, featuring perspectives of experts you know and trust for a better understanding of the stories that matter most. Check out the MSNBC Daily today at MSNBC.com.
You're watching NBC News Now. We've got some breaking news.
Are people there concerned about what impact this could have on the election?
It's news made for your streaming world.
Watch what they do.
President Trump and Joe Biden hit the trend center of this campaign coronavirus. The battleground race is one of the final stretch of the 2020 race. You were sitting here telling me that Joe Biden and President Trump were joint time.
10時からメンテナンスじゃん。10時からメンテナンスかよ。 10時からメンテナンスだ。やべえ、1回終わるね。10分間メンテナンス。ひどい時にメンテナンスだね。